First, I will recite the lineage of the 50 verses on Guru devotion for everyone. After some time, if we study it, some Khenpos and Khenmos may not have the lineage. So today, I will recite it once. This is the lineage of the Tibetan 50 verses. Lamar ngapche arjagar kat garaman yogbo shoka bishaka urkat lamar ngapche babchom dande dorji senhwa la shamsrlo khwardang dorji senhwa neto vikir ba lami javki pa mochjin tudsheti tevtin bana chmeda gidam le son ba dordi shafandana kipem nyambraki wonkrem chokto dorji yerlogon lana tevjin sha chobjin jirten kamjigbe tigzim dana mum chamsar chogda tape tigzim da kirkurme to je tarme tombavlama nimkar jan javlavsho shapsho kimba gamna sarva la jirten mo parpon yishra tambi chula tamchula somdandarte terjing zambi vlu sha dantpa tang dawa tang tonji sha sohnim kar terjig janji kunsharte chiksha tamba manler pang lama tang loma tang sombar tamtsig nyamjer ve hwa tang bu lohon dang lobmim jer aftabra sha lordun lobme lamarno nyerje me chang chola de khang shang chigla ma damdang domdam chebr mafshaw tanjang tarlav lochurdan zordan changla yorji med shingdang jikki jongwa shi nyangtser danjang tanchum ke teni de chena yongsa shi kirnkurun ripi lelam ke ngarshat bai jorwa shi rapt jejang wang botar tenjim gombo samshine lobmar kerne te nina na sanje tamchi nibena dinar tagdar dingmar top slogon lanar mopati yamdang sevi narnamdang dondang ramdang tignam ji rmongchin tenan chevran jer jarbo medang jirdigdang chedang kanjor kunbo dang dondang longjer namji kyang sarna semchang nyarwan ro namiyang slogon takki na kunda sem chig mafsharte karter mombar shijer na nyarwa ngibran sepran jer narmin lasogon jigrong nyarwa tamba kanyam ba slogon lanar mopar nam ter na nebr yang tak shat te mbapa tamje jig dorjur slogon lochu je gearap tam mavjon namyar mapar mafshio lama kipje lama lana kipje yon jisam tambar jimbar sha dina rimso no par nam shirjam jongor manjero ranga tamtsig lokhon jinman wadang chongma da rang chokki gyang temshi na longshud yo wa chmuchi go gamshir karwa shia na jangme paryan nyekawe sangje ni kyang sond tsend nyala terror shida tagda rang tamchi chong tagda tevjang shigbam char tagda lama yang layang brandana sangje kandang ja mazit tenen dopa yi zhongzi de yegung gangdang gang shin de kyabran gerwa na dedang tena lamra jin devjin sangje tamchi lartag de shin ba nyetton yer devshin sonum tsogyin te tsogle nguchum chogdan yer devish lobma nyarji chtong tsuchum zope yondan da logon da na dorjin zan tat parna maftakko churten shignji dignji be zhibman gombar mafshana lamdang tandang jomba so gom mafshawar muchokku loju jimbo tag gasim gi lami kana batem nyan rigba yin mani te la tsiki jang rigba yin mani de la tsik lama le no nguchab tam thori tang na deva tob devem baba tamchi ji lami kalen dam shav lami zen chok jin lami digba gam lama jin deyin korn nyen jin de nyambar jigber tagdab sam martin digdang ngunro dang tsigdur tagdang shamba dang tan la kan jok tagba na tagbar na skepar na lagjo niwer mafsha go Lama tagna lamba na nyardang dikbar mafshagur, tagda te ifshaga lar dang ke pusum, sokbar jim, chirma la sok ndorwa dang, tan lar gang jog, kyungwa dang, chagdang sobar mawa tag, lamim danda mafshagu.
All right, we'll stop here for today. That's all for now. The rest will be recited aloud tomorrow.
Tertir blov jambi jidn jamba kog yangwa, zhognab deva kong hwawa, chula varchid me par tiengan tamcha hwadang trashi ji chukzang charwar, tagdab devi rjin tsambaram jongte, nigmi tisi lamjab na kochan dartawa metam marungu. Di tse zeri dungar me pi wangar, dungar gjan namjang, ghamagma lak cha longwar tawaran zhor mazad, nat sokjang parchir rangloksan zhorter, ngunji tambe kanglagang, magawa tang yidmu dewa mafshibi sim manchigba, de manchigbi rlong manchig, de wanga li jim jongwag zhanyang manchig, di jang sim manchigba la sokba devin korlo korbar songba tang. Rtawong garma chan la fshar nam ghalag nye partarda, jigbi ramzhin chan la nzir nam di ghalag zar hlajang, ngang tambar nam tabrak kawrak songba la sokbe shibir fshawo. Tertirim keba nar tirdig tamchid semla ragli birim tongni, deskit semgi stanen sorte, shkiki gyosok rangla tsangwe fshirurla rang mali shang, semchin dang semchin mayin beg nopa kanki kyam zawar meba dang, chiwa tsayang jisi mzhangwa la sokba yende ti shtagda, chiwi tsayang jisi mzhangwa yende ti shtagda rangwa toba yino. Shangchib senhwa chu tamchib dewe nombi tangin zang yang dartaw rjaba yino. Lunbonub deshtit shurur ki yerle sorda rene jikte, tenar kit chechong gang drabkyang, tenar kit telar kit chechong gang drabkyang, wang malak joto shanglak zerwar tarda songne, marle badang, manzon badang, tsot matigba lasokba, togda mankyur kona manjang, jarkan lasok di gno pi glagdang jede, snyandok jongzad rekyang pjarni drove, sharok kufshik wu chitsang sujang rangavar mugong, gong mokchabar tarda yitwanda marungwa shartak zape, la wuvgeran je nyommo rang dingarwa jigle mete, nabjak chingdi nadya ngak la trarwa nyangtam yino, lam drabak kafshi kir dingar tangda lenligdang, jibshid sogle fshapa nad gdun lam kirki manga zhanyang, mangda yodn mun, ndarar dingar tanglen fshikib zan pagba jiwa ladang, di jimjam kebi yagzhonglap tenne kubdewar fshado. Nibam tabji kengog sogji rigbim chirgi, shtengan dingar shtaja, dedaka mangzang marni pegnelik tongwanin lam chokda jivra yitchangde vjagjang. Tele langwa naya ngar jikchagdang jimba la sogba kiti ki vlongur, rdingar charlik tar mayimbar, mangzamgi ksogda shtawe zirgi nombra fshate, rdjebr mavjoto.
I should have generated bodhicitta earlier, but I'm only starting now. Please generate the supreme and unsurpassed bodhicitta. Let's continue with utilizing suffering and happiness on the path. Yesterday, we already discussed the earlier part. Yesterday, as you may recall, we already had a discussion about the earlier part of our previous discussion in detail in our daily lives, each and every day. We often encounter things that are unpleasant or make us unhappy, which leads to suffering. When things are pleasant, they bring us happiness and joy. There was an important sentence from yesterday that everyone should understand. We often look at any situation. And see it as a fault or a shortcoming. This becomes a habit and turns into a cause of suffering. If you regard any situation as a kind of merit or as benefit, then gradually, over time, it becomes a cause of happiness. Why is this the case? Because in the end, is it really a pleasant object or not? Is it a pleasant or an unpleasant object? Ultimately, it comes down to the way our mind so often clings to things, sometimes holding on tightly. This part is still very important. Everyone must always remember this, whether you know it or not. For example, when we experience suffering, and happiness is pleasant, something everyone likes to accept, But if you really regard such suffering in all its forms as happiness, as something truly meaningful, significant, and important, even though on the surface, at first glance, it may seem just a bit harsh, in reality, you are able to accept it. So this point is entirely determined by the way each sentient being clings to things. Wasn't this explained well yesterday, perhaps? For example, take a bustling city. Look at how a person's attachment shows. If some people especially enjoy chaos, then wow, this bustling city is especially pleasing to them. They won't feel any suffering at all. But for someone who especially likes tranquility, then a vibrant, bustling modern city like this one here would be a source of suffering for them. In the same way, imagine taking a quiet, tranquil mountain cave. Environment hasn't changed. But for a tranquility lover, wow, this cave is absolutely, truly very comfortable. They could live here for a lifetime. But for someone who likes chaos, they might not even be able to stay for even a single day, not even one. So with the same external environment, even though we are both people, because our ways of attachment to it are different, the happiness and suffering it brings to us in our lives in different ways are also different. In fact, if there really were pleasant and unpleasant external environments, everyone should find them nice. Or everyone should see them as unpleasant. Wouldn't that be the case? That's not how, for example, take some Africans. Maybe when an Easterner sees an African, it's so really dark. Why is it like this? If you were to live with them for a day, or even just one night, you might feel uncomfortable, maybe even unable to accept it. For Africans, about Easterners, they have similar feelings too. If you don't have a particular habit, they might find your skin color especially strange well. So if it is really external, tiny particles of pleasant or unpleasant qualities in the world, then everyone should perceive it the same way. But in reality, that's not the case. So in Buddhism, as you may already know, perhaps, there truly are indeed such profound teachings, without a doubt, most certainly. These kinds of profound and deeply meaningful teachings which have been passed, if we really don't have the karmic connection with the Dharma, then that's another matter. But if you reflect on this principle, even for just a moment, even a little, indeed, this theory is irrefutable by anyone. You could say it is decisive and should be considered an unshakable truth. We also need to consistently and thoughtfully contemplate this principle. Often, what should we contemplate? In the past, we traditionally believed that pain is pain and happiness is simply happy. In many cases, this kind of happiness, as you can clearly see, often truly depends on external circumstances. I myself gain it through external conditions. This suffering is also caused by external factors. We've always thought this way, but now, when we look at it from another perspective, do outside things is there such pain and happiness? We admit that part of it does exist. But what is the most fundamental thing? The most fundamental thing is our mind. If we can understand this point, lessons titled Use of Suffering and Happiness, if explained, could be broader. Briefly explained, it could finish in a day or two in 1 or 2 sessions. But the content described here, as we find ourselves lost and wandering through the endless streets of such a vast and unfamiliar city, perhaps if you come across this key instruction, then in your lifetime, no matter what suffering you encounter, you will be able to accept it. If you truly receive such teachings, then among all the knowledge we have learned and accumulated so far throughout our journey, this may be the most useful. Why is that? No matter what we study, whether Eastern or Western knowledge, in fact, some kinds of knowledge, very few, can truly lessen our suffering. As everyone knows, from elementary school to university, or even a doctorate, or if you go abroad to study, the knowledge you acquire, most of it serves to increase your desires, to increase your anger, and to increase your ignorance. As a result, the knowledge you have learned up to this point makes you unhappy instead, making you suffer, making you upset. In that case, is what we have learned really useful at all? All the content from these few lessons really if we keep practicing it over and over again, the profound principles within these lessons will benefit you greatly throughout your life, truly. It really can happen. And the positive impact you experience will last for many years to come. So what is this? This is what we call the secret of the mind in the mundane world. The mind holds many secrets, but these secrets, what is the key that can unlock the doors to these secrets? It is the golden key passed down from the lineage masters. If you don't have it, you are only looking at the words on the surface, or you are just casually and perhaps even leisurely listening to a single lesson, I'm afraid, I must say, you won't be able to truly experience and appreciate the taste of the profound essence within. We are just yesterday's words, and you don't study it deeply or seriously in any real or meaningful way. Then words can be found everywhere. You might think so. But if you contemplate deeply and take the time to investigate further, really considering all aspects, and on top of that, actually practice, then truly what we used to believe all along, as we always have, about pleasant and unpleasant, pain and happiness, we thought most was from external. But do external factors matter? There is some relationship, but the most fundamental thing is my own mind. Whether I'm happy or not, well, it actually depends on myself. If we can truly understand this particular question, it is truly extremely meaningful. Next, it is commonly said that by practicing in this way, as is often emphasized, the continuity of the mind will become more gentle and flexible. Some of us, whether Buddhist or not, in our everyday lives, each and every day, the continuity of our minds is not gentle at all. For example, we may be restless, troubled, or anxious, or even particularly and especially sensitive and fragile and so on. There are many negative emotions. If we truly understand that all external circumstances are manifestations of one's own mind, and the mind is free from the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, if we can grasp this principle, then the continuity of our mind will gradually become gentle, just like adding butter to thin porridge. No matter what, in every situation, it will always be extremely gentle. Your mind, whether you are doing things during the day, it's good to dream at night, will always be especially pure. This is what it means to be gentle. Your mind will also gradually become even more open, receptive, and noticeably more expansive and truly broad. If our practice is not good, our mind becomes extremely narrow. Nothing works. This doesn't work. Can't really hold anything. But if you have practiced the previous principles well, your mind will be very broad. In fact, people with broad minds, no matter where they are in the world, they should be very, very happy, absolutely delighted, without a doubt. I don't remember if I repeated this the other day, but it is said that for those who are advanced practitioners, both city and quiet places are their places of practice. For intermediate practitioners, only quiet places are their places of practice. For beginners, nowhere is a place of practice, and everywhere feels especially agitating. Just like it says in the Sakya aphorisms, a fine horse remains gentle even in the city. A tiger is still fierce even in quiet mountains. So when it comes to our minds, some people say, oh, I've really stayed in a quiet place for so many years. But actually, no matter how many years you stay, if your mind stream hasn't been tamed, even if you live in a cave your whole life, when you come out, you'll definitely bite people, same as tigers. Tiger spends whole life in quiet mountains. If you really think about it, take a moment to observe, you'll notice that for the most part, it basically stays the same over time. There aren't any significant changes, or a Japanese Zen master, Muso Kokushi, said, if there's dust in your eyes, the 3 realms feel narrow. If your mind is free of worries, even a single bed feels spacious. If we have dust in our eyes, then truly the entire great trichiliocosm feels especially cramped. But if there is nothing weighing on our hearts, even if the situation is such that we have just a single bed available to us and nothing more than that, although it may not look very big from the outside, once you step inside, if there are no idle matters troubling the mind, then every season in the human world is a good season. If there is nothing in our hearts, the whole world feels especially open, truly, absolutely, and incredibly vast and remarkably boundless. People who can easily get along with others and turn suffering into a path. It's really easy to get along with anyone in almost any situation. They can get along with anyone, whether it's with a leader. You can easily get along with servants. They can get along with good people in the world. And even with bad people. Truly, sometimes for us humans, being agreeable is a kind of spiritual practice. Nowadays, people in the world say, this person has a high IQ, but their EQ isn't very good. They have conflicts with everyone. Their intelligence is truly great. They're very smart, but their emotional intelligence isn't very high. This is indeed the case. Some of us may really, truly sometimes have conflicts, even with everyone. This isn't really actually very good. We should be easier to get along with. We should be brave inside, not so fragile at heart. Some people are especially fearful or even anxious whenever something happens and are often, almost constantly, in a state of fear. People like this also, in general, truly won't succeed in their spiritual practice. If you can transform your suffering into the path and practice well, then the mind becomes very strong. No matter what happens, you can, if you wish, face it calmly. Differences among practitioners, sometimes even among our own volunteers. Some people are, for example, especially noticeably nervous whenever they speak, looking around anxiously, not even knowing what they're nervous about. It's just like how wild animals eat grass. Some little sparrows are like that too. They peck at some scattered food on the ground, then pause and look around cautiously, scanning their surroundings. But we live in this human world, and it's not even a time of war at all. There's really no need to be so nervous and on edge, right? Especially when there's such a lack of security. In fact, no matter what happens, if your mind is calm and courageous, then whatever happens, you will still maintain a very composed, balanced, and serene state. You won't be constantly unsettled and wavering in your daily experience. Practitioners face no adversity. Even when all kinds of negative conditions appear, it actually brings great fortune. For people like this, there are no real obstacles in their practice. No matter what, maybe for each and every person, if practice free of obstacles, that would be quite difficult. But for those whose hearts are firm and unafraid of suffering, there will be no real obstacles in their practice. If your heart is very fragile, and you worry about today, if you worry about tomorrow's event at night when you sleep, if mice are running around, you still can't sleep and feel especially upset. I am also afraid of heavy rain, and they're scared when they hear thunder as well. Any case, all to them becomes an obstacle, a hindrance to their practice. Today I am not feeling well, a problem. If they argue with Dharma friend, that becomes an obstacle. The day after, if they don't eat well, that turns into an obstacle. A few days later, if the weather is bad, that's another obstacle. Recently, if you're in a bad mood, that actually becomes yet another obstacle. Home issues are obstacles. If friends or relatives, perhaps unintentionally, communicate unpleasant or hurtful things to you over the phone. So for those of us who are not calm and composed, everything, everywhere, obstacle. If you can turn suffering into the path, what's happening to you becomes a very minor matter indeed. So all those things that others see as inauspicious for you can be transformed into, we face situations. You could say that since I came here for more than 30 years, during this time, we faced many things. Most people, we've experienced all of them, but when we do, we always consistently and carefully treat them indeed as favorable conditions. We face them with wisdom and perhaps even benefit from them greatly. This includes us in our lives where we encounter many things. For some people, face situations like this, let alone practicing or spreading the Dharma and benefiting others, it's hard to say whether they could even hold on themselves. But at such times, we still remain very steadfast indeed. In this way, we should be able to overcome anything, no matter what happens, always together. Moreover, we can remain constantly peaceful, joyful, and content at all times in our lives. If we cultivate ourselves in this way, our minds will always be calm. No matter what happens, my heart is as steady as a rock. We won't be indecisive or waver. We won't become especially anxious, frantic, or agitated inside. Those who truly have realization and practice, even if they encounter something, they'll think, oh, here's an opportunity. And they feel content no matter what happens. They won't feel fear, but rather a sense of fulfillment. If that's the case, it should be very good. For example, if someone is in the late stages of cancer, for instance, someone who is suffering from advanced cancer, a pessimist might think, I'm finished. What will I do in this life? An optimist might say, I'm still okay. I've already lived so many years. That's really good enough. Now, at last, I can properly and thoroughly prepare myself for the next life. If someone can remain this calm, then that truly is a state of spiritual cultivation. So practicing in this degenerate time, this kind of armor is absolutely essential. In our world of the five defilements, as we all know and experience, impurity of views, afflictions, or lifespan, right now, our world has many negative aspects. All are aware. When we watch the news, it's always, today there's a flood here, war starts there, an epidemic here, a famine there, and so on. All sorts of things happening. In times like these, in an environment, if we don't have a strong will, it's hard to endure, hard to rise above it. So in such a truly degenerate age, this level of spiritual practice, the armor of transforming suffering into the path, is truly essential. Our Dharma king, the wish-fulfilling jewel, or for lineage masters, their experiences are times that are even more unimaginable than our own experiences in history, truly. Yet their unyielding, formidable armor, their unwavering, steadfast resolve was never completely or utterly destroyed by any external circumstances. Therefore, as disciples of the lineage masters, not Shao Cha Cha, that we possess all of these virtues completely. But at the very least, in the course of our practice and in our lives, when we encounter various, we should transform them into part of our spiritual path. We must not let these obstacles simply cause us to abandon our practice. That would be truly far too regrettable. So we must live on with strength and continue to practice with resilience. This is what every practitioner ought to do. At that time, because there was no suffering from vulnerability, not only did all other forms of suffering become like soldiers who've dropped their weapons, but even illnesses, whether they are minor or more serious, would basically disappear on their own over time, thanks to the body's natural healing process, without needing any medical treatment. If we truly do not have this kind of vulnerable suffering within ourselves, the most frightening is the suffering of vulnerability. Whether male or female, regardless of gender, some women are quite strong. Although men may often appear to be physically larger and more imposing in terms of their size and build, but their hearts are fragile, not so strong. They seem to eat quite a lot and all kinds of different things, really just about anything. It's very good when eating, their bodies are big, but when their hearts encounter even a little difficulty, I sometimes joke and say, just for fun, you guys are honestly just like little girls, seriously. Maybe it's wrong of me to say this, but in reality, their hearts are fragile, facing challenge. I started giving up. I just can't do anything now. In fact, many great people in our world, no matter what they encounter, they never give up. This is without a doubt very important. Many people, during the course of their lives, at some point, or starting their own businesses, are bound to face challenge. But some people, when they encounter even a little adversity, they do not give up. Not even because of it, they don't become discouraged because of it. I often interact with some of the Khenpos at our institute. Roles rotate years. But after 2 years of rotation, basically, many people's motivation, they no longer want to keep it up. They're already so exhausted. Ouch. I'm a little tired of finding a place to practice in the future. At the beginning, everyone is full of confidence, determined to do it. There were once 2 Khenpos in charge of finances. And at first they said, we handle the finances to serve the monastic community. We must successfully establish and carefully maintain a strong and reliable market in Lhasa, Tibet and ensure its success. Set up a market in Xining, market in Seda County. We said, your aspiration is very good. Really, it might be hard to follow through when the time comes. It could get a bit exhausting sometimes. Let's focus on our internal Lorong market, and if we can manage that well. At the time, they felt dissatisfied, thinking it was too small. They insisted on expanding it more and more. But after 4 or 5 years, or even as many as 7 or 8 years, even this too seemed to become something that they simply didn't want to commit themselves to anymore. So sometimes, as people, beginning many of us, when setting goals, we are full of hope, enthusiasm and motivation. But gradually, as we encounter all sorts of things, whether it's motivation to aspire, Dharma, helpings, in many aspects, there tends to be a process of losing that initial drive. Sometimes our Buddhist study is like this too. Start it, we might say, why aren't you diligent in your Buddhist practice? You're still going out to have fun, where do you find the time? You must reflect on impermanence of life. This I just understand. I began studying Buddhism back when Dharma King Wish-Fulfilling Jewel was here. The time spent on leisure was not long, but we all felt it was such a waste of time. We thought it shouldn't be like this. What's the point of playing around? But later on, as time went by, sometimes that initial enthusiasm will still gradually change over time. What does this mean? If you don't have a fragile heart, then other kinds of suffering, including slander from others or insults from others, all forms of suffering lose their power. So what do they really become? It's like a soldier. If a gun or knife, these words that fell to the ground, then that soldier is an ordinary person. If you go into battle without any weapons, how could you possibly defeat anyone? It's impossible. So all adverse conditions and illnesses, when faced with someone strong, it is very, very powerless indeed. Whether it's spirits, obstacles, or suffering. And even when we do get sick, if someone is unafraid of illness and not weak, the illness will basically just disappear on its own. Over time, most people go to the hospital for checkups. Some people are afraid to enter the hospital. Some, after hospital stay, ask, what exactly does this indicator mean? Doctor, am I going to die? Is there truly any hope? But some calm people, even when told their illness is serious, they say, it's fine, just treat it however you can. If it can't be treated, then I guess I'll just pass away at any time. They remain very calm themselves. And in this way, the illness naturally, because your mindset has a certain effect in this way, it naturally disappears. So this principle, this has also been clearly and repeatedly stated and affirmed by many great masters and highly respected teachers of the past, whose wisdom and insights have been recognized and valued throughout history. Great masters have said this: if a person is always genuinely joyful and happy at heart, and their mind is not disturbed, because the mind is not disturbed, the wind is not disturbed, when we are in a good mood, the channels, winds, and essences in the body are more balanced. The energies as well as the winds in the body will not become disordered or disturbed. Because of this, other major body elements will stay in harmony. If our winds are well regulated, then the fire element, the water element, and the earth element, the other four elements will also continue to remain balanced and stable, carefully maintaining their equilibrium as well. In fact, when we are in a bad mood like this, we can really clearly feel it ourselves. We immediately start to breathe heavily. And some people, when they get angry on the phone, it means their winds have already started, simply because their mood is bad. When the mood is bad, the winds begin to get a bit chaotic. Because the wind is strong, the other four elements also cooperate together. Our body actually has four partners, the four elements. And when they act together, the whole body becomes unbalanced. So if we remain in this state of mind for a long time, if the four elements are not in disorder, for this reason, we often find ourselves free from mental afflictions, and we are quite often in a state of happiness. This is extremely important. No matter what situation we face, we should do our best. As practitioners right now, we have not yet reached this level. Although some have taken refuge, some have become monastics, some have studied Buddhism for years, it's possible that our learning has been lacking and we truly have not practiced very well. If we have not practiced well, then in theory, although we listened closely at the time, these theories, if not part of continuum minds, cannot subdue our affliction. There will definitely be a certain gap. Some say, why attend many classes, yet you still have afflictions? Why do you still get so angry? How can you still feel unhappy inside? This is what must be cut off through practice. Not just through understanding. Cut off by understanding, we might be able to comprehend what gives rise to afflictions and what causes suffering. We understand these principles. We understand view. Understanding view is comprehension, not true realization. If it were true realization, then on the basis of that realization, one would need to practice. After practicing, the Dharma merges with the mind. It would be like the realization of first stage Bodhisattva. And if one continues practicing, advancing, then we can completely eliminate these afflictions. Of course, as ordinary people, if we understand, it doesn't necessarily mean we can immediately put it into practice. But knowing and not knowing, there is a significant difference between the two. In the past, we may have truly suffered because of pain, and perhaps I felt unhappy inside. Wind unbalanced, elements unbalanced. 4 elements unbalanced. The mind is in an especially anxious state. If I have these key instructions, then when my whole body and mind, the 4 elements, are out of balance, I will know the fundamental cause, which is my attachment, or that there are certain reasons related to my own practice. So, what does it say here? Just if our body truly is, why do so many people age so quickly nowadays, often from frequent anxiety and bad mood? This is definitely related. Some people have a very good mindset. And if your mindset is good, even in extremely difficult environments, but if you take a closer look at him, you'll see that his whole body really hasn't changed much at all, even after all this time. Historically speaking, in the past, as described in Mandela's biography, it was clearly and specifically mentioned that the people who actually went to prison with him when they were released, everyone else looked so very old, tired, and rather pitiful. But as for him, he didn't look old at all. Even his hair was still, surprisingly enough, black. That's how it was described or explained at the time. Usually, after going to prison, many people's hair, maybe some people today, even before going to prison, as far as I know, they typically use black hair oil for both their hair and scalp on a regular basis, right, by the way? Ladweight. Let me think. Isn't that usually used for dyeing hair or something like that? People do dye their hair. No dyeing hair prison. Maybe their natural hair color slowly turns white. Some people, it seems, after just a day or two inside, when they come out, their hair is already white. Mindset's good. Even if you're locked up in prison, your hair won't turn white. This is also mentioned in some accounts about Mandela. So it's closely related to both the body and the mind. There's still a strong connection. We really don't like fast time, in our opinion. Don't age badly. You really need to keep your mindset well adjusted at all times. If you don't manage your mindset properly, then even if you use the very best face creams available now, or a wide variety of other products, including items such as electronics, clothing, household goods, after all, many people these days are unwilling to accept aging and put a lot of effort into their faces every day. But it's still useless. Because if your mindset is especially anxious, you'll start to age really very quickly over time. But if your mindset is truly good, like some practitioners living in the mountains, some practitioners in the mountains, though they not eat very well and may not dress very well, they might get nourishment from nature. And on the other, their minds are merged with the Dharma, so their cycle of happiness keeps turning continuously, which must be very interesting indeed. So here, as well, the mind stream remains in a state of simply undisturbed happiness. Analogy next. It's like having a wound on your back, whether it's a horse, a donkey, or other livestock. If there are many different kinds of birds all around us, because of the wound on the back, some birds may land on it, they still have a chance to take advantage. This means you don't have this experience, for example, when we ride on horses, for instance. When riding horses, if the saddle on the horse isn't very good, the horse's back often gets badly wounded. And when yaks are used to carry luggage, sometimes the load is too heavy, for example, when carrying firewood or its own saddle, because yaks also have a saddle on their backs. If the saddle isn't fitted properly, it often causes wounds on the yak's back as well. Wounds, usually crows or magpies, they especially like to go onto the yak and peck at the wounds, and the yak gets very, very scared. If there's something on its back, it gets really, really frightened too. If there's nothing on its back, they aren't afraid and remain calm. It's the same principle. Whether it's donkeys or horses, if they have wounds on their backs, then crows and birds like them will take advantage of that. Similarly, people who are fearful are easily targeted by ghosts and spirits. But it's hard for ghosts and spirits to harm some people with strong willpower. From this reasoning, it should be clear. Old Miscellaneous Parables Sutra said, there were 5 individuals who once, a while ago, traveled slowly and carefully along a winding road. Along the way, they encountered a snowstorm, making it extremely difficult to proceed. At night, they stayed in a dilapidated temple. Actually, inside this ruined temple, there was a particularly powerful spirit. A ghost or deity lived there. Inside, there was a statue of a deity, seemingly made of wood. At that time, 4 of them didn't think much of it, but one person was especially afraid. He thought, this spirit might harm us. At that moment, the spirit was about to harm that person. These spirits actually are really just like people in front of strong-willed people. They are still quite fearful. At first, he was scared, but later, seeing that the other 4 weren't afraid at all, he thought, why am I afraid? Gradually, his willpower also became strong. He wasn't afraid. Once unafraid, the spirit had no way to take advantage of the situation in that ruined temple. It seems they even burned the statue. But even then, the spirit couldn't do anything. Indeed, sometimes these spirits, when facing atheists, they are still rather hesitant. In the past, in our Tibetan region, there were sacred mountains. Atheists don't believe in karma. They would destroy things at will. Even some especially powerful temples or mountain gods can do anything to them. There has always been this kind of saying in the past as well. If we are especially afraid of spirits, if we are very fearful, then indeed sometimes they can take advantage of us. In the Mahasanipata Maha-Akashagarbha Bodhisattva Sutra, it states, if the mind truly does have gaps, then the mind will waver. Because of this ongoing wavering and uncertainty, demons can more easily take advantage of the situation. Because our minds, quite naturally, are fragile or have concerns and worries about what might happen next, or perhaps even sometimes feel uncertain. At such times, truly, anything can happen. In our folk traditions, it is said, whatever you fear will appear, whatever you worry about will come. If you are afraid that you might lose someone, then you might actually lose that person. What do you think of my thing? Will I encounter a ghost today? Will I run into something bad? Then you really might encounter. Because many things are actually manifestations of our own minds, and such things will appear right in front of you. So if our minds have some gaps, the reasons for a wavering mind are things that demons especially like. Prajnaparamita Sutra. People whose minds are especially fragile, people whose minds are unstable and unsettled, such people in particular. Ghosts and gods, including some mountain gods and earth gods, so for them, harm comes very easily. Therefore, we say, a crow quietly encounters a dead snake lying motionless. The brave act like a great rock. If faith is timid and weak, as it sometimes can be, even in the very best of us, at times in ways we may not expect, one suffers even from minor faults. In the Enlightenment treatise, there is, if a crow comes across a dead snake, the crow is heroic like a great rock. Indeed, sometimes we see that when a crow finds the body of a snake that is already dead, it starts pecking at it and carrying it around. This does happen because it realizes that the snake is already dead. For some practitioners with fragile minds, for people such as those who lack mental and emotional strength, even a small adverse condition, it's especially easy to destroy him. Crows are timid. Everyone knows this. Could you please let me know if this specific topic or idea is actually mentioned in the Buddhist text known as entering the path? Crows aren't heroic. But when they encounter a dead snake, do they act heroically just like a great rock?
So if we humans have fragile minds, then any affliction, any suffering, any adverse condition will also appear before us because we have already become like a dead snake, having lost courage, feeling empty. At this point, even a small adverse condition appears before you, it will trample and destroy you like a great rock. In spiritual practice, we need to be courageous. I always think of our guru, the wish-fulfilling jewel. One could say that his entire life was truly heroic. His heroism, after all, was not simply about holding a gun against his enemies. It really wasn't like that. Instead, he used the gun of wisdom and all his on the path of practice. You could say all external conditions, he had already overcome them all. So in our future lives, we should still have a sense of confidence and not, I am a very pitiful and unlucky person. I'm completely screwed. My whole life has honestly been a complete failure. We often give ourselves so many negative descriptions or labels to ourselves. That's really, truly not a good thing. Not at all, in any sense. So these key points are being discussed. Today I'm talking more than usual. You all shouldn't set a time limit for me. Otherwise I will simply, don't look at the time and don't set a time limit. Nothing here. Anyway, when we go back tonight, there's no need to rush to catch a flight. For those with strong willpower, even demons cannot harm them. Next it says, therefore wise people have discovered that after realizing that all happiness and suffering depend on one's own mind, they seek true happiness within their own minds. This is really very important. The way wise people and foolish people judge happiness and suffering, different ways of judging. So-called wise people, those who are truly wise, deeply insightful, and have dedicatedly cultivated themselves. What have they discovered? In this world, all happiness and suffering actually depend primarily, truly, on one's own mind. Once you rely on your own mind, if you truly want to seek genuine happiness, you should look for it deep within your own mind. Because the very root of suffering and happiness is each person's own unique mind and perspective. If you want happiness, you should seek it within your own mind. The causes and conditions for happiness are already present within yourself. You won't depend on circumstances. You yourself are like a great treasure trove. And whatever you want the emotional happiness. You also have everything you need. If you truly seek happiness through wealth, you also have everything you need. If it's the status or happiness in other aspects, you also have everything you need. All of it is already present deep inside you. Every bit of it is within you. The key to this happiness is ultimately it comes down to a sense of contentment. This is very important. Because if you are content, you will truly feel happy, no matter what happens, always within yourself. If you are not content, then it is hard to attain such happiness. In fact, happiness is simply a contented mind. According to Buddhist logic and the Abhidharma Kosha, it is considered a pleasurable feeling. Among pleasurable feelings, one is a mental pleasure and another is physical. But as for physical sensations, for us ordinary people, these pleasurable feelings must be recognized and fully understood through the mind, consciously. Just as psychology explains, for example, the sensations of our five senses, we often talk about vision, smell, touch, and so on, as well as perception. All of these are described forms of perception. But if we look at it from the perspective of Buddhist logic, when we talk about sensory consciousness, they do not possess the discriminating awareness of conceptual thought. They are simply a kind of knowing mind. All of them rely on our mind to make judgments. I'm happy, I'm in pain. Regarding the sense of touch on my body, the sensation itself is in nature non-conceptual. In the end, whether the sensation I feel is a pleasurable one or the painful touch is something that starts to increase through conceptual discrimination. In this way, all of these experiences we have, whether they are pleasurable or painful, are related to conceptual mind. Our conceptual mind, in fact, also has certain habitual attachments in particular. If it's attachment, if I know it, I will feel satisfied. If satisfaction is in the mind, then happiness arises. If you lack satisfaction, then happiness truly feels very, very distant from you right now. Sutra Buddha's last teachings. A contented person, even if simply lying on the ground, is still at ease and truly happy indeed always. One who is not content, even if in heaven, will still not be satisfied. A contented person, even lying on the ground, is still very happy. Look at some beggars, some homeless people. They sing songs and are especially joyful. But for those of us who are not content, even if we live in a multi-million-dollar villa, we are still extremely miserable and we are always suffering. One who is not content is poor even in wealth, while a contented person is rich in poverty. I like the passage. If you look at the scriptures, they truly offer us many key insights. We are content with the little Buddhism contentment, less desire. Many people think if you are content, few desires mean money. Being content and having few desires is not just about money. All of his inner desires must be met contentedly. About your feelings, if you think, I'm okay, this is enough for me right now, at this moment, with this kind of contentment, in this case, no matter who you interact with in your day, whoever you are with, you already feel satisfied. But if you're not content, nowadays it seems like some celebrities, because they themselves are not satisfied as individuals, end up being very, very miserable, truly unhappy and deeply unsatisfied. Even when they're with someone right there by their side, they're still, even at that very moment, unhappy. They change partners again. No matter how many people they switch to in the end, it's always unsuccessful. Because he truly couldn't have brought it to you, after all. The kind of satisfaction you need. In the same way, when it comes to our feelings, in general, in worldly terms, when it comes to relationships, those who are never content will never obtain what they want. It's the same with status. You become a deputy section chief, and then you want to be the section chief, then deputy director. After becoming deputy director, even as director, you still want to keep moving up one level after another, get provincial. It's still not enough. You want to transfer to an even higher position. If unsatisfied, your status will be, for you, a source of unhappiness. So being content with less desire is not just about material things. There are many other important aspects, including our mental state as well. If you feel satisfaction, then you can experience happiness. So as a wise person, one could say that ultimately, in the end, all true happiness depends entirely on oneself. You think that I actually have this kind of happiness, that I truly possess this feeling of happiness, really, then you won't become attached to external circumstances, nor will you be harmed or disturbed by any sentient or non-sentient beings. Because you yourself, as we mentioned earlier, at the beginning of the text, sentient and non-sentient beings, if you are someone who's content and calm, they also won't be able to cause you any harm. And even at the time of death, this happiness will always accompany you. Even when you are truly dying, happiness will always continue to be with you. There are some people who, through their practice, no matter how sick they become, even if their condition worsens, they stay cheerful and live their lives happily. Truly, there are differences among people. Some people are fine with anything. When managing projects, okay, doing it this way is fine, no problem. Like this? That's still okay. I'm fine with anything, there's really no problem. All right, if we do it, we do it. If not, then we don't. Anything is fine. I don't really have any particular preference, so I'm happy with whatever you decide. I'm open to any suggestion you have, but people are different. Indeed, among the people I personally know, well, some people are just always like this. I say, how do we handle this? Can you maybe go over there? Sure, no problem. If you say so, I'll go over there. No, that place won't work. Can you? All right, that's no problem at all. I'll just come over here now and carefully set my intention. Some people really, no matter when you see them, they're generally pretty good to others most of the time. And if they're also relatively happy themselves, then it's easy to get along with anyone in any situation. Maybe even when they're dying. If I get sick, then I'm sick. It's nothing much. Anyway, I'll just recite mantras. Whenever I die, that's fine. Their mind is relaxed, not tense, not tightly wound. In this way, at any time, without exception, one should be very happy. Bodhisattvas also practice this way. What do they cultivate? The calm balance of mastering bodhisattvas first. They also have a special kind of practice. As it turns out, they're meditative equipoise of joyfully mastering all phenomena. Whatever situation the bodhisattva is in, even if I cut your body with a knife, they still experience a kind of happiness. They have realization and meditative equipoise. If they use realization and equipoise in your life, no matter the situation, during Cultural Revolution, many great masters and eminent monks were burned, and others. I've seen in the biographies of some lamas that at that time, many things were truly unbearable to witness. It could be said to be extremely cruel. If you compare then to now, the suffering that some of us experience today is purely mental suffering. It's not physical suffering at all, nor is it suffering from outside. The main cause is probably our own karma and habitual tendencies, being too attached, too tense, this kind of suffering, this very discomfort. If it were truly a burning hot knife, directly stabbing into your muscles, into your intestines, that kind of pain is almost unbearable for people in this world. But certain great masters are unwilling to abandon the three jewels, no matter what you do to them. I have offered up my body countless times since beginningless time, but this time it is for the three jewels I make this offering. With such an incredibly courageous conviction, all the wounds and all the pain of the body they able endure. These are truly vivid, real-life examples. Everyone should sometimes reflect on this as well. Sometimes we feel we are suffering greatly, but actually it's not true suffering. I feel like I am in the world the most pitiful person, the most miserable person. When we get sick, we might feel uncomfortable. But aside from that, as long as we have food to eat, that's enough. If there's nothing to eat, I've thought about that too. The way I thought when I first became a monk is really different from how I think now. Don't know old age, but maybe in my later years, if others think I look pitiful, in my heart, I still feel, even if I am the most pitiable person in the world, like a beggar, or if I were locked up in prison, there isn't much. I've considered these two situations. Maybe they wouldn't really bring that much suffering after all. As Milarepa said, when deluded thoughts subside, the mind is joyful. Without unease, there is happiness. There is happiness here and happiness there. I feel that everything is happiness. I don't dare say I've reached that level, but truly, because of the blessings of the three jewels, for many years, regarding the practice of the great masters, one could say that any circumstance is a source of happiness. There is happiness here, and there is happiness there. Words like these mean joy, situations possible. In short, whatever happens, it's all acceptable. If you make me poor, just like it says in the brief oral commentary, 7 points of mind training. If it benefits sentient beings, let me die. If it benefits beings, I'll fall ill. If it benefits sentient beings, let me be healthy, benefit sentient beings. In fact, whatever happens to me is fine. My mindset may have changed at the time, but this change, in terms of the overall direction and principle, I will not change. When I read the biography of Atisha, actually, sometimes it seems that his mindset was quite changeable, certainly, for a great master. Sometimes he would say, Tibet is so poor. It's almost like the world of hungry ghosts. Other times he would say, wow, the water in Tibet is so good. Had this in India. We would use it for offerings every day, regularly. If we look at his biography, his mindset seemed to change quite a lot. But overall, he was always thinking of sentient beings, and honestly didn't really particularly care much at all about his own personal happiness or comfort. So we also hope, with all our sincerity from the bottom of our hearts, that happiness mainly depends on ourselves, right? In short, happiness comes from within. If you rely on others to find happiness, to be honest, that's not very realistic, at least not in most situations, if you think about it. These are indeed the words of a wise person, transforming suffering. I think for those of you who truly want to practice well, you should read it carefully every day. It may not work, because you've just recently heard it just a moment ago. If you listen and apply it, it might not work. After you leave here, you may still experience suffering and things like that. But if we just keep at it, read a little every day, and after 5 years, if you keep at it nonstop, keep reading like this, maybe after about 5 or 6 years of gradual habituation, you'll realize before transforming suffering and happiness into the path, I was a very miserable person. But because I received these teachings, I am very happy. Some people say that this heart medicine, before I had it, my heart was in very bad shape. But after I got this medicine, everything is fine now. Some people say things like this is spiritual elixir. Maybe you'll say, before I had this article, I am in life. A lot of rather childish or immature thoughts in my life. But now, because of the blessings of the Dharma contained here, I have come to understand many principles. I think now I have also read through articles, psychologists, East and West, and I have read works from well-known universities. The theories they have developed for treating psychological illnesses. But truly, and I say this not to praise myself or belittle others, I genuinely feel that these teachings are, in my opinion, extremely meaningful. Why is it that the great master Dampa Nyingma, over 100 years ago, back in those days, left us such truly extraordinary pith instructions for future generations? Why is it, though, they did not experience suffering at that time? Nowadays, in our hearts, we experience, if we have these wonderful remedies, I think many of us might at some point, it really would be quite helpful. Unfortunately, it seems that there aren't that many people in our audience this time. Day by day, the numbers are slowly but surely dwindling away, and unfortunately, there's really nothing that we can do about it at this point in time. This isn't Dorchen after all. Many of you don't want to listen. If it were Dzogchen, even if you didn't understand it, oh, I'm someone who listens to Dzogchen teachings. I'm quite important myself. Transforming suffering and happiness into the path. I don't have any suffering either. What's this about transforming into the path? I might as well just stay home and sleep in. Right now, while we're giving this lecture, some people are definitely off having sweet dreams right now. I'm sure that many people aren't really listening attentively. Some people may be listening, but they're eating or cooking, maybe even preparing something else, at the same time doing this, not paying attention. If you don't listen carefully and pay attention to what is being said, even for the wise, sometimes it's hard to understand, let alone for those whose minds are scattered. That's what was discussed earlier. As for the foolish, they hope to find happiness in external things and keep running around after it. These days, most people in the world, maybe not 100%, but certainly for many people, when we meet them often, really think this way. You wonder why that is? Why don't these people ever really actually take a look at their own minds? In fact, you really can't find happiness in external things, but people keep running around after it. And it's truly exhausting for them, even though they're chasing after all kinds of happiness, big and small. Some have happiness, some seek money for happiness, some seek status, and some are just running around for all sorts of happiness. In this short life, whether you get what you want or not, it all ends up the same. But what does it all eventually become in the end? It's like the saying, power is in someone else's hands, like hair caught on a tree. This is a saying from Tibet, a region known for its rich culture and deep traditions, passed down through many locals say it's a common folk expression. Actually, what it says is quite true. If all our power is all in someone else's hands, then you have no freedom at all. You can't possibly be happy forever because you're under someone else's control, under their influence. If you have no freedom, then you can't be happy. But once they finally release their control over you, even if it's just for even a brief moment, you might have freedom and you might find happiness. It's the same principle. If our hair gets caught on a tree or a branch, swaying gently in the breeze, slowly reaches out and wraps itself around it, holding in that situation, there's nothing you can do. In ancient times, people had longer hair back then. When you go into the forest and your hair gets caught by a tree, if your hair, for example, is snagged on a tree, no matter how you move your body, you can't get free. But once everything is finally untangled, then at last you're truly free to move forward. This is one way of putting it. In other words, the point is, just like people in the world say, if power is in others' hands, you can't be happy. And if your long hair is caught on a tree, you can't be free either. You're always like a yak, helplessly tied to a stake in the ground, unable to move freely or break away, constantly held. No way, you're free. Happiness will never truly come. Happiness will never truly be complete. Happiness will never be fully and completely realized, and so on. Things often turn out contrary to your wishes. If you truly place all your hopes for happiness on someone else, perhaps, first of all, happiness will never come. For example, when it comes to relationships in the world, you might think love is joyful. But this happiness of mine, if it depends on the person, on what someone says, then first of all, happiness may not even arrive. And even if it does, it might not be complete. What they give you may only be partial, not the whole thing, really. And as for your happiness, the happiness they truly bring you might not be what you truly want. They may think they love you, but the kind of love you are looking for deep down truly isn't really like that. It could be completely the opposite or something like that. This is speaking from a worldly relationship. Or if we talk about money, you might think that having money will definitely make you happy. But if having money really brings happiness, you try to make more money. However, the happiness you get from money usually doesn't actually arrive. Or the happiness you gain from relying on wealth is not truly complete. Maybe you can only earn part of it, but you still haven't quite earned enough yet. If you simply depend on money alone to bring you true happiness, it still doesn't quite fit the bill. Perhaps the simple happiness that money can truly bring into our lives is not what you imagine. What you imagine is even happier, even more subtle, but it is always out of reach. So, this matter, something that many people experience, if they could understand this principle, it would truly be very meaningful. Often your wishes and what you actually, in many cases, ultimately receive, the real results you achieve in this world are completely at odds, going in opposite directions. Your desires and reality are in conflict. You can never achieve your goal because you think relying on others to give you happiness, and many people in the world today are like this. You hope that others will bring you happiness. For example, parents often place their hopes and expectations on their children, but children, as we all know, often don't really listen. They often just completely ignore you. Or even among family members, it's really just the same. You demand that others give you and make you happy because I treat you so very well, truly. Most of the time, the happiness you want, the other person simply can't give it to you. When they can't, you suffer, and sometimes so do they as well. That's how people in this world are. If your happiness really becomes perhaps something you genuinely enjoy from the external world, whether it's a house or a car or traveling and sightseeing, does something like this truly exist somewhere out there in the world? Some people do rely on these things to find happiness. Does this exist? Yes, it does. But these people don't place all of their happiness depending on external factors. If you also understand as well that part of your happiness comes from your own mind, you adjust your mind, then treat external conditions as just a part of your happiness, the happiness we seek in this world, what you might get. If you don't do this, you'll never truly get it. So here it says, in this, if a fool really places all their happiness on external things such as these, he has different happiness will not arrive, it will not be complete, and happiness will never truly be in place, etc. Often things turn out contrary to one's wishes. Moreover, enemies, thieves, etc. can cause harm. Also, taking advantage of the opportunity. These damages are also in nature opportunistic. Even a tiny bit of criticism and your happiness may vanish in an instant. Because some people, for example, in our world today, in the society that we currently live in, and in the environment that surrounds us, for example, some men and women want to get married and so on, to live a wonderful life together. But then, right at the wedding, her mother said something, or father-in-law says, and the whole truly beautiful, visually stunning, and simply comes to an end. There's nothing you can do. In many cases, because your happiness is fully dependent on external circumstances, any criticism from outside, a small gesture or a minor action, you are happy. Your happiness is actually very fragile. You are undeniably, especially foolish. You think the other person is the source of happiness, but in fact, the idea that the other person is the source of happiness is just like what is so vividly described in the renowned Ratnakuta Sutra. It talks about the wise and the foolish. For example, if someone's throwing a stone from outside, a lion will come and attack the person because it knows that the origin of the stone itself is in fact the person. But a vicious dog doesn't know this. It just chases after the stone, regarding the source of our happiness and suffering. The wise know it relates to them, while the foolish always think it is related to external circumstances. In this way, and as a result, thieves and the like can also take advantage of the situation. Moreover, in the world, if you encounter any criticism, your happiness will instantly disappear. As a result, it's like a crow. No matter how carefully it raises a cuckoo's chick, it can never truly become its own child. It is completely unreliable. If you treat this as case, actually these metaphors are really quite interesting. I hope everyone will take some time to think about them carefully. We have believed relying on outside factors for happiness. In reality, this is truly absolutely unrealistic. It's just like a crow, which very carefully raises a young cuckoo chick in its nest. If you keep raising forever, it won't work the crow. In Tibetan region, crows come every day. They stay here in the summer and in the winter, but that tiny little cuckoo chick, the one sitting in the nest, you think this is my child, and you carefully raise it. Once it grows up, it will just fly away on its own. Here, usually in winter, cuckoos or bugunino cuckoo birds are mainly not around in winter. For 3 whole months in the summer, they are quite simply always like this, just like this day after day. If a crow thinks that this cuckoo chick should be my own child, when it finally flies away, the crow will be especially sad. But it's pointless. All external things are like cuckoo chicks. No matter how carefully you raise them, they can never bring you lasting happiness. The metaphor here is that I myself think that external things can truly make me happy, but they only bring you a little temporary happiness. You can't get it. So without any exaggeration, this is a very profound and special pith instruction. In the end, what kind of outcome will it lead to? The outcome is the gods are exhausted, the spirits are troubled, and you yourself are in pain. In the end, no matter how carefully and diligently you try, there's really nothing you can ultimately. Nature of samsara, many people work so hard to earn money, but no matter what they do, things still end tragically. So in the end, even the gods may be helpless. They tire. They wonder, how is this person so foolish? If you keep acting this way, even I can't help you, they get tired as well. Some spirits and deities also feel troubled. This person is really, really stupid. They all feel deep sympathy for you. Spirits and deities originally have no intention of seeking benefit from others, but even they feel them are too pitiful. They also become quite troubled as well. They feel even more pain because he always believes outside makes me happy. But in reality, the external world is like a cuckoo's chick. Cuckoo chick to crow. No matter what, there's nothing that can be done. So sometimes we really should truly understand these key points and principles. Did you understand them? Personally, I feel that nowadays in this world, there are now more than 7 billion people in our world. But the majority of people truly place their happiness in external conditions, specifically in the outside world. If people are unhappy, actually, it still has something to do with themselves. This is a key tip from the 100 Essential Instructions. Here, the author says that above, there truly are, most certainly, 100 essential points, truly, and these are especially important key pieces of advice. Well, because, as you may already know, our mind truly is indeed absolutely very important. You see, if you haven't understood, there will still be certain difficulties. Venerable Milarepa also said, when the mind chases after worldly affairs, kinds of troubles arise. In this way, those who study Buddhism are constantly in pain. If you truly don't understand this, our minds may follow external circumstances and experience all sorts of various troubles. Such Buddhist practitioners are always in suffering. But as people who study Buddhism like us, at the very least, we should have a key instruction to have key instruction ourselves. The other day, a doctor said he was in terrible pain. Didn't you spend your life treating others' illnesses? So you should at least have some way to help yourself, right? We Buddhists often discuss spreading the Dharma, benefiting sentient beings. When we're healthy, you should study the preliminary practice as well. Spread the Dharma, benefit others. But when we ourselves are troubled, facing difficulties or challenges, clay bodhisattva can't save itself. At that time, so these teachings really are key instructions. You have this feeling, but I personally feel that indeed many sentient beings nowadays, especially those living in big cities, are truly running for money, relationships, and livelihoods. It's fine busy, our struggle to survive, Buddhism has never prohibited that. It's very important. But you shouldn't think all external things can sometimes bring me happiness issues. Some psychologists, after carefully studying and researching, have concluded that there is no happiness at all in external things. But this particular view is also, in fact, not correct. Happiness is in external things. No happiness is not true. Happiness in our minds. Not only Yuzuvan animals experience happiness, sometimes when we see calves or foals, they are happiest in the summer, running around. They are joyful animals, experience happiness. Then do we humans have happiness? Yes, we do. But as for these kinds of happiness, they are not completely dependent on external circumstances in their lives or experiences. Do we have happiness? Yes, we do. But this happiness is related to our own minds. It still has a certain connection. In spiritual practice, suffering can be turned into the path, as well as detailed instructions on transforming illness and obstacles into the path. Although there are many other key instructions in the essential points of our general practice, it is taught to transform suffering into the path. And in severance practices, at times illness is transformed into the path. Many methods of practice, with numerous key instructions and a wealth of theory. In transforming suffering into the path, this is generally more common in Chöd practice. In Chöd there are teachings from the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the teachings of Dzogchen, as well as some Mahamudra instructions. Such teachings are abundant throughout Tibetan Buddhism. There are several teachings in Han Chinese Buddhism's Prajnaparamita, although there are many, but in here, mainly based on the Noble Shantideva's Guide to the Path of Enlightenment or Bodhicharyavatara. Many principles are mentioned in Bodhicharyavatara. They are key instructions to share with everyone. There are also the treatises of his followers, such as the Venerable Atisha, Longchen Rabjam, and Mipham Rinpoche from Tibetan Buddhism. The works of many great masters have explained simply and clearly, universally applicable way to make suffering. This is the method for transforming conventional suffering into the path. Next, we'll discuss the ultimate, most comprehensive, and most effective method for truly transforming suffering into the path. So how exactly is this particular situation explained in detail, and what are the reasons behind it? How to turn suffering into the path is important. I hope many of us, most people, ordinary, use ways to turn suffering into path. We should have for example, some of us who are wise, when they go out, they bring some medicine with them. They worry about what to do in case they get sick, so they bring some medicine. If they go to a high altitude area, for example, what if there's not enough oxygen? If they catch a cold from the wind, they bring some cold medicine, or they bring medicine themselves. In the same way, on the journey of life, we may often get sick for various reasons. So, for this kind of simple medicine, I suggest we always carry some with us. This is one aspect. Second aspect, it is the method of transforming suffering into the path by relying on ultimate truth, by relying on the reasoning that refutes the four extremes through logical analysis, not to mention the suffering caused by adverse conditions. Even its mere name is ultimately unattainable. All things are not born of themselves nor of others, not from both nor without cause, therefore know that there is no arising. It is said that all phenomena are not self-arisen, nor are they arisen from others, nor are they co-arisen, nor are they produced without a cause. Therefore we know that all phenomena have never truly arisen, self-arising from others, co-arising, no for-arising, then no other way of arising is possible either. In the same way, our suffering is just like this. Suffering does not arise from itself, nor from others. Unstudied Madhyamika Shastra, or have not studied the Madhyamakavatara. How many people here have studied the Madhyamakavatara? How many of you have studied the Mula Madhyamaka Karika? It seems not bad, but to be honest, in the future, you still definitely need to continue to study and review them. The Madhyamakavatara provides a comprehensive discussion of the four types of arising to understand that all phenomena are unarisen. The same applies to suffering. If our self-grasping does not arise in any of the four ways, then suffering in any conceivable way cannot possibly exist, either not at all whatsoever. The Zongjing Lu also states, all good and evil, suffering and happiness, cause and effect, exist conventionally, but are absent in the ultimate truth. There is another line that follows According to the ultimate truth, it is said that, in fact, nothing at all can truly be established or defined through mere words. Therefore, in Chinese Buddhism, conventional truth versus ultimate truth. On the conventional level, causality, good and evil, suffering, happiness exist. But on the ultimate level, even these nominal designations cannot be established. Of course, this is not available, requires a great deal of scriptural and logical reasoning to infer. When you infer, you come to understand that cannot truly arise in the ultimate sense. If things cannot arise, the views of true existence, the indivisible particle does not hold up, the moment of consciousness is not established. Using such methods of analysis, this is considered the best analytical approach in Madhyamaka. In the 12th chapter of Longchen Rabjam's Yid Bijin Mizod, Wish-Fulfilling Treasury, he specifically discusses at length, in great detail, the analysis of the duration of time. Among these, there is an analysis regarding the length of time. For example, we believe that durations of time do indeed exist in our everyday lives, as we know, or that indivisible particles exist. If particles that cannot be divided any further, known as indivisible particles, truly exist in nature, for instance, in our room, the sunlight shining in... The sunlight and shadows are actually made of particles. 100 particles. If there are 100 particles, then when I shoot an arrow here, these 100 dust particles have all passed through. 100 particles. Is there perhaps a duration of time in between? If you say there is no duration of time, then even a kalpa would become just a single instant. If there is a duration of time, then it shows that the so-called indivisible particles it passes through are actually not indivisible, but divisible. They still simply have a front and a back. Other ways exist. I don't know if you all understand what I'm saying this way. There's also the method of carefully analyzing the indivisible instant of consciousness. For example, I'm a person and there are two people in front of me. So when I have these two people, these individuals right in front of me, standing there together, you know, I generate the moment of consciousness in this process. For the very first one, for instance, as we say, this one is called Yuan Guan, and this one here is called Yuan Yin, two people. I think this is Yuan Guan, this is Yuan Yin. So with these two people, there is a single moment in particular, in my mind. If it's just one moment, then that one moment, in fact, should become two moments. Why is that? The moment of consciousness I just had of this is Yuan Guan actually also immediately becomes same time. There is the thought of this is Yuan Guan and this is Yuan Yin in my mind. So the mind that clings to this is Yuan Guan is just one moment, and there is also a moment that is actually closer to Yuan Yin. If that's the case, then it in effect turns into two moments. If there are two moments, then there is also a moment on Yuan Yin. As for this moment, it is split into moments closer to Yuan Guan and moments farther from Yuan Guan. So it also becomes two. In this way, these two moments for Yuan Guan, and the latter is a moment for Yuan Yin. Do these two have any difference in duration? If you say there's no long or short duration, it clearly just got extended. If you don't extend it and there's still no difference in length, then this kalpa would also simply become just a single moment. If you say these two do, as you might notice, indeed have a difference in length, no matter how you try to reason it out, in fact, the previous one moment and two moments, and then this one moment as well, it has a front part and a back part. Through this method of observation, in the end, you realize that what I just thought was the perception of the perfect vision and perfect sound, and believed to be indivisible, this kind of mental consciousness, in fact, when you analyze it further like this, it can be divided into many parts. In the end, what I personally think is when I see perfect view and perfect sound in an instant, in reality, it is two moments, and those two instants then became 4 instants, and then became countless instants, and then they became 1,000 instants. In the end, it seems to me that these moments of my own consciousness cannot truly be grasped. In the Yidbijin Mijod, there are many such. Compared with our usual Madhyamika, the Mula Madhyamaka Karika and the Madhyama Kalamkara, the Yukti Shashtika and Shunyata Saptati, these are not mentioned. Some special observation methods that are commonly used in practice ultimately we'll realize is all phenomena are unattainable in the end. They're like dreams and illusion. You reach this state, you can abide here in peace. So some of our young people have a little, who read a lot of books in the past and truly possess discernment and analytical ability, I suggest you study more Madhyamaka and logic. Your conceptual thoughts are easily overcome. People like us in the conventional world today, distracting thoughts. You might think something in Buddhism is incorrect or that this wisdom is not so extraordinary. But if you study these teachings yourself, you, wow, even though I studied Western philosophy before, just like I mentioned yesterday, whether it's Adler or Freud or Jung, even though I've learned about psychology, or Aristotle, the philosopher, and many other highly distinguished and influential Western philosophers, thinkers, and intellectuals throughout history, like Plato and their philosophies. But when compared to the wisdom of Buddhism, perhaps sometimes we ourselves gradually gain a completely new and different kind of insight. The suffering, in the ultimate sense, even its mere name does not exist. The statement is very important. Suffering truly, in the ultimate sense, not even the word suffering exists at all. Don't say pain is real. If you study Madhyamaka well, or if you study Dzogchen well, you don't need to fear suffering. There isn't even the name of suffering. If even the name doesn't exist, it's no different from the son of a barren woman. So what is there to fear? What's suffering to fear? Therefore, next, let the mind rest in the true nature of emptiness, in the supreme and peaceful state. Even when entering meditative concentration from this state, it won't be like before, where feelings of fear, dread, or timidity sometimes arise for some people. This won't happen. Instead, regarding these sufferings, they are empty names and conceptual constructs. With this kind of view, you can overcome everything. As for these principles, to avoid being overly verbose, I won't elaborate further. Here, in this section, the author did not explain the ultimate Madhyamaka methods of analysis in detail, Dzogchen abiding method, nor the Mahamudra Pith instructions. He just simply gave us a brief explanation. Actually, this sentence carries very profound meaning. When examined from the ultimate perspective, even the mere name of suffering does not exist. When I first read this particular sentence for the very first time, I gained a lot from it. Although the words are brief, it really is so. From point of view, let alone suffering, empty suffering, not exist. This sentence, for me personally, has been very rewarding because I have also studied when you use Madhyamaka reasoning, indeed, let alone suffering, even the name of suffering cannot be found. No name for suffering found. Then how could you find its reality? Its nature is unfindable. It's no different from the son of a barren woman. In the conventional world, we should transform suffering into the path. But in the ultimate sense, even its empty name cannot be found. How come you can't get it? If you don't believe it, go study the ornament of the middle way. Study the Mula Madhyamaka Karika too. Study the Yidbijin Mizod. See if suffering can be found. If you really can find suffering, then I'll give you a gold or silver medal as a prize, something special you can keep as a keepsake to remember your achievement by. If anyone can actually obtain suffering, if any of you truly suffer, come on, please raise your hand and I'll give you something really wonderful. Really, let me see what I have here right now. I'll give you my best. In the ultimate sense, let alone suffering itself, if you can even obtain the name of suffering, is there anyone? If so, raise your hand. Really, is there anyone out there, anyone at all, anyone listening? If the name of suffering doesn't exist in ultimate sense, that is, right now, in the ultimate sense, in the truest reality, if you can't name suffering, then what really do we have to be afraid of? Why, after all, do we still cry, even when we know this? In that case, shouldn't it be easy for us to overcome suffering? In the truest reality, if name of suffering doesn't exist, then where could suffering possibly be? It truly doesn't exist. When I saw this sentence, although it's the same as the Madhyamaka principles we often study, anyway, these principles, you could say, for 20 or 30 years, studied, understood annually, but sometimes a single sentence can still be very rewarding for me. So this sentence as well, if you can't grasp it today, nothing done. You don't want the prize, win a prize. At the very least, I'll give you my teacup. If you can attain it in the ultimate sense, to whoever attains it, I'll give it to that person. Ultimate sense, not conventional sense. If you suffer normally, many people would raise their hands, they've achieved it in the usual sense. Ultimately, anyone attains suffering. I have this teacup here and I'd like to offer it to someone. Would anyone like to have it? If there's anyone interested, please let me know and I'll gladly give them this teacup. You yourself can still study Madhyamika if you wish. All right, that's good. It's better if there's no suffering. Let's be happy together.
Bandara Bandara